a legal battle that has, like, everyone in the music industry talking.
Oh, yeah.
Drake
Right.
versus his own record label, Universal Music Group, or UMG.
Huge.
Yeah. And it's like, you don't really see this very often, a megastar artist,
Yep.
you know, suing the very people who produce and distribute his music.
Yeah.
But this isn't just like your average contract dispute. This goes much deeper.
No, this is much deeper, and Drake's accusations are serious. And they all stem from this diss track that was aimed at him,
Right.
Not Like Us, by Kendrick Lamar.
Okay.
And in the track, Drake alleges that there are some pretty disturbing things in there, and his lawsuit claims that UMG knew about these accusations, but also actively promoted this song to go viral.
Okay, so let's rewind a little bit of this diss track, Not Like Us. What exactly is Drake saying is so bad about it?
Well, according to the lawsuit, it actually accuses him of being a pedophile and even contains calls for violence against him. Very serious allegations, and Drake is saying that UMG was totally okay with potentially putting him in danger by promoting this song.
So if I'm understanding this right,
Yeah.
Drake is saying that UMG threw him under the bus to make some money off this controversial track.
That's essentially it, and it brings up a lot of questions, about the responsibility of record labels in a situation like this.
Right.
They have such a huge influence on what music gets heard and promoted, and if they're actively pushing a song with potentially harmful and defamatory content,
Right.
what does that say about their priorities?
Yeah, that's a great point. And we have to talk about UMG's response because they're not just, sitting back and taking this. They filed a motion to dismiss the whole lawsuit. And their lawyer's statement is, well, let's just say it doesn't hold back.
No, it doesn't.
They basically said that Drake is being a sore loser who can't handle a little, rap battle.
Yeah. Their lawyer is quoted in this Hip Hop DX article as saying, instead of accepting the loss like the unbothered rap artist he often claims to be, he has sued his own record label in a misguided attempt to salve his wounds. Plaintiff's complaint is utterly without merit and should be dismissed with prejudice.
Wow.
So they're trying to frame this as just a simple case of Drake's ego getting bruised and overreacting.
So essentially they're saying, oh, it's just a rap battle, lighten up Drake.
Right.
But it sounds like Drake's team is not buying that at all.
No, they are not. Drake's lawyer, Michael Gottlieb, actually fired back with a statement of his own, saying UMG wants to pretend that this is about a rap battle in order to distract its shareholders, artists, and the public from a simple truth. A greedy company is finally being held responsible for profiting from dangerous misinformation that has already resulted in multiple acts of violence. This motion is a desperate ploy by UMG to avoid accountability, but we have every confidence that this case will proceed and continue to uncover UMG's long history of endangering and abusing its artists. So he's painting this much darker picture, saying that this is about UMG putting profits above the safety and well-being of their artists.
And he even mentions multiple acts of violence. What's he referring to there?
Yeah, it's a little bit unclear. At this point, it could be that Drake's team has evidence of specific violent incidents that they believe are linked to these accusations in the song, but it definitely adds another layer to the whole situation.
Yeah.
It's not just a war of words now, it's about real-world consequences.
It feels like there's a lot more to this than meets the eye. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's go back to UMG's attempts to dismiss the case. What happened there?
Well, they also tried to delay the pre-trial hearing and discovery process,
Okay.
which is essentially the time when both sides gather evidence to support their arguments.
Right.
But the judge, Jeanette Vargas, ruled against that.
Okay.
Which is a pretty significant win for Drake this early on, because it kind of suggests that the court sees at least some merit to his claims.
So just to recap what we know so far, Drake is accusing UMG of pushing this song that contains these pretty serious allegations against him, putting his reputation and possibly his safety at risk.
Yeah.
UMG is trying to downplay it, saying that, oh, this is just a harmless rap battle gone wrong.
Exactly. And while UMG initially tried to delay the whole process, a judge is allowing it to move forward, which is a good sign for Drake's team, but this is just the beginning of this whole thing. It's going to be interesting to see what happens as things unfold.
For sure. All right, so we'll keep digging into all this, and we'll be right back. It's pretty wild to think about the power dynamics at play here.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you have Drake, this global superstar, going up against, one of the biggest music corporations in the world.
It's true.
Like David and Goliath.
Yeah, it's like, what does it say about the industry if an artist of Drake's stature
Right.
feels like he has to resort to legal action to protect himself?
Exactly, and that's what I keep coming back to. Like, if Drake is having this much trouble with his label,
Right.
what are the artists who don't have his fame? or his resources?
Exactly.
What are they going through?
That's a really crucial point, I think, because, Drake has the platform and he's got the money to challenge someone like UMG.
Right.
But a lot of artists, especially those starting out,
Yeah.
that kind of power is unimaginable. They're often locked into these contracts that really heavily favor the label.
Right.
And leave them with very little control over their own careers.
So it seems like this case could have implications far beyond just Drake and UMG.
Absolutely. And if Drake wins this, it could potentially embolden other artists to push back against their labels,
Right.
demand more fairness and transparency. We might see more lawsuits challenging these unfair contracts,
Right.
or raising concerns about how labels are actually promoting music.
So what are some examples of how this could change the industry? Like how would a win for Drake actually impact future contracts?
Yeah, I mean, we might start seeing provisions in contracts that give artists more control over how their music is promoted.
Okay.
Because right now, labels kind of dictate how a song is marketed.
Right.
Choosing which singles to release, what kind of music videos to make, which platforms to focus on.
So you're saying artists might be able to say like, hey, I don't want my song promoted in a way that I'm not comfortable with, or I don't even want it released as a single.
Exactly. It could give them more of a voice in shaping their own narrative and ensuring that their artistic vision is respected.
That would be huge. It's almost like artists could become their own mini record labels with more control over their destinies.
In a way, yeah. And that could lead to, I think, a much more diverse and vibrant music landscape.
Speaking of control, let's talk about those accusations of unlawful methods that Drake's lawyer brought up.
Okay.
He mentioned things like fake streams and radio play.
Right.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so this is where we get into the world of streaming manipulation,
Okay.
which is becoming a lot more common in the music industry.
Really?
And it essentially involves companies or individuals who are artificially inflating the number of times a song is streamed.
Wait, so how do they do that?
Well, there are a few different ways.
Okay.
Sometimes they use bots, which are basically computer programs,
Right.
to generate these fake streams.
Wow.
Or they might pay real people to listen to a song over and over again.
Oh, wow.
There are even services you can pay,
Wow.
and they guarantee you streams.
So what's the point of faking streams?
It all comes down to money and perception. So a higher stream count makes a song appear more popular, which boosts its chart position.
Right.
And can lead to more radio play,
Okay.
more media attention,
Right.
and ultimately more revenue.
So it's a way to game the system and make a song seem bigger than it actually is.
Exactly. And the problem is this practice can be so harmful
Okay.
because it distorts the charts and it creates this false sense of what's really popular.
Yeah.
Listeners might think a song is a hit just because it has all these streams when it's really not gaining traction organically.
That's so misleading, and I imagine it hurts other artists who are playing by the rules.
Exactly. It creates this uneven playing field.
Right.
Where those with the resources to buy fake streams have this big advantage over those who don't.
So it's not a fair game at all.
No. And it could lead to a less diverse and creative music landscape because it prioritizes this artificial popularity over genuine talent.
That's messed up.
Yeah.
And Drake's lawyer is specifically accusing UMG of using these tactics to boost Not Like Us.
He's alleging that UMG engaged in streaming manipulation. And they might have even paid for radio play.
Wow.
To make the song a hit, even though it had these harmful allegations against Drake.
Wow.
Now, UMG denies these accusations.
Yes.
But if Drake's team can prove it,
Right.
this could have huge repercussions for UMG.
It feels like this case is about so much more than just this one song. It's like all these fundamental problems in the music industry.
Yeah.
The lack of transparency, the exploitation of artists, the manipulation of what we perceive as popular.
It's really shining a light on this often hidden machinery behind the music we consume.
So where do we go from here? What are the next steps in this case?
Well, now that the judge has allowed it to move forward,
Right.
we go into the discovery process, which is when both sides can gather evidence
Right.
to support their arguments. And this might include internal UMG documents,
Yep.
financial records, communications between the executives, maybe even expert testimonies from people in the music industry.
Sounds like it could get messy.
It definitely has that potential, and I think the evidence is going to be crucial in determining what direction this case goes in.
So we'll be watching closely to see what happens, but even if it doesn't go to trial, the fact that it's happening is making waves.
Oh, absolutely. It sparked a conversation about the industry that's a long time coming.
It's crazy to think this all started with a diss track.
I know.
But it's become so much bigger than that.
Oh, it really has. It's turned into like this referendum on the music industry.
Right.
It's forcing us to ask these tough questions about power,
Right.
control, and the ethics of how music is made and promoted.
And this case could have implications even beyond music, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the issues at play here, like corporate responsibility, artistic freedom, this manipulation of online platforms,
Right.
those are things that are happening in a lot of industries.
Right.
Think about the film industry,
Right.
publishing, even social media influencers.
Yeah.
There's often this huge power imbalance between creators and then the corporations who control these platforms.
So if Drake wins, could it create this ripple effect
Oh, for sure.
that empowers creators in other fields to stand up for themselves?
Yeah, a victory for Drake could really embolden creators in other industries.
Right.
To challenge unfair contracts, demand more transparency, even push for more control over their own work.
That's a powerful thought. What would the music industry look like if artists actually had more leverage?
Right.
What if they could say, hey, I don't want my music promoted this way, or I don't want this to be a single...
It's an interesting question. We might see a shift towards these more artist-driven initiatives.
Right.
Where creators have ownership and control.
Right.
It could lead to a much more diverse and innovative music landscape.
But let's be real, UMG is huge.
Oh, yeah.
They have so much money and influence. Do you really think Drake can win this?
Well, it's definitely David versus Goliath.
Yeah.
But remember, the judge allowed the case to move forward, so she sees something there.
Right.
And Drake's team is very confident.
Okay.
They really believe that they have a strong case.
So what's the best case scenario here? What does a win even look like for Drake?
Well, ideally, he'd be awarded damages for, the financial harm he suffered.
Right.
But I think what's more important to him is the principle of this matter.
Okay.
He wants to hold UMG accountable for what he sees as this unethical and possibly dangerous behavior.
And what about UMG? What happens if they lose?
It could be very damaging financially and to their reputation.
Yeah.
They could face a huge financial judgment, and it could tarnish their image and make it harder to attract new artists.
It really feels like this whole case is putting the music industry on trial.
I agree. It's exposing a lot of the inner workings of an industry that can be very secretive.
Regardless of the outcome, it feels like this is going to have a lasting impact.
I think so too. It sparked a conversation that's not going away.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's
Yeah.
the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this whole Drake and UMG saga?
I think the biggest takeaway is this: even in a world with these massive corporations, individuals still have the power to challenge things and demand accountability, and this is a story about artistic freedom, corporate responsibility, and that fight for a fairer and more transparent music industry.
Very well said. And who knows, maybe this is the spark that creates a revolution.
It's possible the future of music is being written right now, and it will be fascinating to see how this all unfolds.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into this wild legal battle.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll be keeping a close eye on it as it unfolds, and we'll see you next time.